All right, let's dive right into it then. We're jumping into a really interesting moment in NFL history today, looking back at a uh, pretty key decision the Jacksonville Jaguars made way back in the 2012 draft.
Yeah, and we're doing it through a specific piece, a Yardbarker article by John Shipley over on SI. They did a really good job looking back, kind of contrasting what did happen with this fascinating what if that Pro Football Focus PFF came up with.
Exactly. So our mission really is to unpack that article, put the reality side by side with that PFF alternative they talked about. Because the question it leaves you with is pretty big, isn't it? Just how much can one single draft pick really change everything for a team?
It's the classic draft debate, right?
Mhm.
And the article starts by setting the scene for us back in 2012. The Jags, they were sitting there with the 7th overall pick initially.
Right, number 7. But they didn't stay there. The article points out they made a pretty significant move. They traded up, moved up 2 spots to number 5, made a deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mm. And with that number 5 pick, the player they zeroed in on was the wide receiver, Justin Blackmon.
And you can see why, based on how the article describes it, it talks about Blackmon's talent being just undeniable, displaying truly elite abilities, the kind of talent where people were saying maybe the next Jimmy Smith for them, potentially the face of the whole franchise, that level.
Oh, yeah, the raw talent was definitely there. You could see it on tape. But then comes well, the tough part of the story. The article gets into how off-field issues, what the writer calls his demons, just really cut his career short.
Yeah, and that's the real gut punch here, isn't it? It meant he was limited to what, just 20 career games?
Just 20. Played only in 2012 and 2013 before those issues basically took him out of the league for good.
And the article really emphasizes this wasn't just, a bust in the typical sense. It had knock-on effects.
Exactly. It directly hampered the Jaguars, prevented them from building a much stronger roster going into that next phase, the Gus Bradley and Dave Caldwell era.
Think about the draft capital, the roster spot, the cap space, all tied up in a pick that delivered so little on the field.
Yeah, and the article doesn't pull any punches. It calls it, arguably, the biggest draft mistake in the team's history.
Which, reading it, seems like it's not just about the talent not working out, but maybe that feeling, in hindsight, that some of the risks were known, or maybe avoidable. It carries that weight.
Right, that sense of what might have been if things had gone differently, or if the evaluation had weighed those risks more heavily, perhaps.
So, okay, that's the path they actually went down. But then the article brings in this really interesting what if from PFF's redraft exercise.
Yeah, PFF sketched out this alternate timeline. They asked, okay, what if the Jags hadn't made that trade up from 7 to 5? What if they'd just, stayed put at number 7 where they started?
Okay, so staying at 7, and the player PFF suggested they likely would have grabbed in that spot.
Linebacker Luke Kuechly.
Wow, okay. Luke Kuechly. Now, he obviously didn't go to Jacksonville, ended up with the Carolina Panthers, and had, well, an incredible career.
Absolutely star-studded.
Yeah.
The article points out he's seen as a genuine Pro Football Hall of Fame candidate. His play speaks for itself.
And PFF's data really drives that home, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. The article mentions his PFF numbers. An elite 94.0 overall grade across his whole 8-year career. And get this, there was a 5-year stretch, 2014 to 2018, where he earned at least a 90.0 PFF grade every single season.
That's incredible consistency at the highest level.
It really is. Now, the article does note his career was cut short by injuries, which is unfortunate. But it aligns with PFF, saying even with the shorter career, his impact and dominance should get him into the Hall eventually.
And connecting it back to the Jags, the article makes that point pretty clearly. Kuechly could have been exactly what that franchise needed in 2012.
Yeah. Given where they were, the state of the roster, the needs they had, a player like Kuechly, a defensive anchor, a leader, he changes things. It's not just one position.
Right. It potentially shifts the entire defense, maybe even the team's identity. So when you put those two scenarios next to each other, based on this article, the actual Blackmon pick versus the PFF hypothetical kooky pick, man, the difference is stark.
It really is.
Yeah.
On one hand, you've got the Blackmon reality. Just 20 games, off-field issues defining the story, ultimately seems a major franchise error.
And on the other side, this potential reality, drafting Kuechly, a Hall of Fame caliber player, elite PFF grades year after year, a defensive cornerstone for nearly a decade. It's night and day.
Yeah, the article sums it up pretty bluntly, saying the Jaguars, quote, had to sleep in the bed they made with the Blackmon pick. And missing out on guys like Kuechly, who went shortly after their original pick slot, was a direct result of that choice to trade up and take that specific risk.
It really lands as a kind of a cautionary tale, doesn't it? A
Right.
lesson learned, perhaps, for the franchise, but also really for any team navigating the draft.
Absolutely. It highlights that tension between immense talent and potential red flags. How do you weigh those?
So, yeah, this deep dive, looking at that Yard Barker piece, comparing the Jags' 2012 reality with PFF's what ifs, it just paints such a vivid picture of how high the stakes are in the draft.
Definitely. One decision, years and consequences.
Right. So, thinking about what the source lays out this huge draft error driven by off field problems, missing out on a potential Hall of Famer like Coochly, what does that whole scenario tell you, the listener, about that constant gamble teams take? How much can they truly know about mitigating risk versus just hoping the talent wins out? Makes you wonder how much is evaluation and how much is just, well, luck of the draw sometimes, doesn't it?